People always think the scariest part of my job is the people I catch. It isn't. It's the ones who are patient, the ones who can wait. I did private investigation work for a little over 6 years. Most of it is as boring as it sounds. You sit in a car. You take pictures of the same door for hours. You drink cold coffee and you wait for somebody to do something they shouldn't. The movies make it look exciting. It isn't. I'm not some tough guy. I'm a guy with a camera and a folding chair. But there was one case early on, one I still think about every time a house creaks at night. It taught me how long a person can stand still in the dark, just waiting and not make a sound. To protect her privacy, I'll call her Dana. Dana wasn't the type to imagine things. That part matters. She was a court stenographer. She sat in a room all day and typed down exactly what people said, word for word, no extra. She noticed small things for a living. The first time she called me, she apologized twice for wasting my time. She kept saying she knew how it was going to sound. She'd bought an older house about a year and a half before she called me. A nice place, kind of mid-century, the type that needs a little work. Before she moved in, she'd hired a contractor to redo the basement and the upstairs bathroom. Friendly guy, she said. Did good work, cleaned up after himself, never gave her a weird feeling. He drove an old dark pickup truck she'd see parked down the block sometimes, even after the job was long done. She figured he had other work in the neighborhood. She mentioned him to me exactly once, and then we both forgot about him for a long time. I shouldn't have. That one's on me. Here's what was happening. Things in her house were moving, small things. A coffee mug an inch to the left of where she left it. A picture frame turned around to face the wall. The thermostat bumped up 2 degrees. Nothing ever got stolen. Nothing got broken. She wasn't about to call the police over a moved mug, and, if I'm honest, part of her had decided she was doing it herself and forgetting. So she did nothing for a long time. Months. She told herself she was tired or stressed, and she put everything back where it belonged and got on with her life. And then, for a stretch of almost a year, it stopped, completely. No moved mugs, no turned frames, nothing. She decided she'd imagined the whole thing the way you do. She got comfortable in that house. She started to love it. That long, quiet stretch is the part that bothers me the most, looking back, because I don't think it ever really stopped. I think he just got better at putting things back, because it came back. Worse. And this time she didn't tell herself a story about it. She got smart. She started writing it down. When she finally called me, she had a notebook, and she showed it to me right there at her kitchen table. Every entry was a date and an object. March 9th, blue mug moved. March 12th, hallway photo turned. March 15th, thermostat, pages of it. I've been doing this a long time. And that notebook gave me a cold feeling I didn't say out loud. People who keep records like that are usually right. The thing that finally scared her, really scared her, she'd written at the top of the last page. She came home, and one chair at her kitchen table was pulled out. Just one. Pulled out and turned a little, facing the back door, like somebody had been sitting in it watching the yard and stood up quick. And then it got worse. She started finding that chair pulled out almost every day. Then she noticed a smell. Faint. Only in the hallway, only at night. Something unwashed, she said. Like a person who hadn't bathed in a long time. She'd opened the windows, and by morning it was gone. One night she woke up at 2 in the morning, dead certain she'd heard a floorboard creak in the next room. She lay there for an hour, not moving, holding her own breath. In the morning her reading lamp was on. She always turned it off before bed, always. She even tried to catch it. She started setting little traps for herself. A pen laid dead straight on the counter, a cabinet door shut just so, and in the morning the pen would be a few inches over. The cabinet would be standing open. Never enough to take to anyone. Just enough to make her think she was losing her mind. That's what she wanted from me, really. She wanted somebody to look her in the eye and tell her she wasn't crazy. I did the normal things first. Checked every door and window. No forced entry. None. Anywhere. Her locks were good. I had her change them anyway. I walked the whole house and, I'll be honest, it felt fine. Lived in. Normal. I put 2 little cameras inside, one watching the kitchen, one watching the hallway, and I told her to call me the second anything moved. Then nothing happened. For almost 3 weeks, nothing. The chair stayed put, the lamp stayed off. The smell didn't come back. Dana started sleeping again. She called me kind of embarrassed and said maybe the new locks did it. Maybe it really had been somebody with an old key, and now they were locked out for good. She was ready to pay me and move on, and I almost let her. I want to be honest about that. I almost packed up and called it solved. But something was nagging at me. In 3 weeks, my cameras hadn't caught one single person, not one frame. And yet, twice. When I went back through the footage slow, I saw the hallway camera go dark, just for a couple seconds. Not turned off, blocked, like something passed right up against the lens, too close to focus. Both times at 2:11 in the morning, the exact same minute both times, which somehow made it worse. Both times while Dana swore she was home alone and asleep. That's when it landed on me. Whatever was in that house wasn't coming in anymore. It had never been leaving. I went back the next day in the daylight, and I searched that house the way you search a place when you already know you're going to find something, and you don't want to. What I found in the basement is something I still can't explain all the way, and I've had years to try. The contractor had finished the basement, new drywall, clean and white, all the way around. But one wall was wrong. The room was shorter on the inside than the foundation was on the outside. There was a section of shelving I could swing out, like a door, and behind it was a space maybe 4 feet deep that ran the whole length of that wall. Somebody had been living in it. There was a thin mattress on the floor and a little camp light. There was a hole drilled through into the room beyond, at sitting height, and when I crouched down and looked through it, I was looking right at Dana's favorite reading chair. He'd lined it up perfect. But the part I can't shake was the shelf. A long shelf screwed right into the stud. And on it, a neat little row of small things. An earring, a single key, a spoon, a blue hair tie, a guitar pick. Maybe 30 objects evenly spaced out. And under every one, written on the wood in pencil, a date. It was her notebook, the same idea, the same dates, just kept from the other side. She'd been logging the things that moved. He'd been logging the things he took, because that's what it was. He hadn't been moving her things to scare her. He'd been taking them, one tiny thing at a time, and putting a near-identical copy in its place, so she could never quite be sure anything was really gone. The moved mug, the turned photo, those were just him getting careless, comfortable. The chair faced the back door because that's where he liked to sit when she wasn't home. It was the contractor. The dark pickup truck down the block was his. He'd built that hollow wall during the renovation before she ever moved in. He built her house around himself. He still had the only key that mattered because he never needed a door. The police took him out of that wall the same night. He didn't run. He didn't fight. He just looked disappointed, like we'd interrupted something. They figured he'd been in there, on and off, for the better part of a year, a few feet from her, listening to her come home every night and type down other people's words all day, and then talk to nobody. Dana sold the house. Last I heard, she was doing okay. As okay as you get after a thing like that. I think about her case more than any other I ever worked. Not because of what he did. I've seen worse. It's the patience of it. The idea that a person can decide to be a part of your life so quietly that you never once feel them show up. What still gets me is her notebook and his shelf, sitting side by side on that table down at the station. Hers started in March. His earliest date was from 3 weeks before she ever moved in. He had a date on that shelf. For a day she had never set foot in the house. I never did figure out whose thing it was, or whose day. I'm not sure I want to. My whole life, people have told me I'm too willing to help. I'm the guy who stops for the car on the side of the road. The guy who hands a stranger at the bus stop his number, just in case they ever need a ride. For a long time, I thought that was one of the better things about me. I don't think that anymore. It's been like that since I was a kid. In high school, a guy I barely knew talked me into lending him my car for 10 minutes so he could pick something up. I knew, even while I was handing him the keys, that I'd never see it again. I didn't. And the worst part is, I spent weeks feeling guilty for being angry about it, like I was the one who'd done something wrong. That's the wiring I'm talking about. It doesn't switch off when you grow up. It just finds bigger trouble. There was one night, a few years back, that almost made it the last thing anybody ever learned about me. I'll call him Cole because I never did find out his real name. I don't think Cole was even it. Back then, I worked the overnight shift at a gas station off the highway. I just moved to the area and didn't know a soul. The night shift suited me fine. It's quiet, and the people who come in at 3 in the morning are usually too tired to start anything. After a few weeks, you start to know the regulars. Cole was one of them. He came in 2, 3 nights a week. Big, friendly guy. Always had a story. He'd lean on the counter and talk at me for 20 minutes about nothing, and on a dead night, I liked the company. He learned my name fast. He asked about my family back home, whether I had people in town, what days I worked when I got off. At the time, it just felt like a friendly guy making conversation. I told him everything. I didn't have one single reason not to. That's the part I can't forgive myself for, even though everybody tells me I couldn't have known. Before the big favor, there was a small one. About a month in, Cole asked if I'd hold a package for him behind the counter. Said he couldn't get deliveries at his place. I did it for a couple weeks. Totally normal, totally fine. He always tipped me a 20 when he came to pick it up. I understand now that the small favor was a test. He was finding out whether I was the kind of person who'd do a thing for a near stranger without asking too many questions. I passed. I wish I'd failed. One night, Cole asked for the real one. Said he had to leave town for a family thing, and his uncle's place across the county needed somebody to stop in. Check the pipes, leave a light on, so it didn't look empty. $200 cash for an hour of work. I needed the money. He'd been coming in for months, and I said yes before he even finished the sentence. He didn't call me with the address. He texted it. I still have those texts. I've read them more times than I'd like to admit, looking for the moment I should have stopped. The address was a 40-minute drive, further out than I figured, down roads that got darker and emptier the whole way. The last turn wasn't even on my map. I almost turned around right there. The only thing that kept me going was not wanting to face Cole and admit I got scared of a driveway. It got stranger when I got there. The house sat by itself at the end of a long gravel lane. No other houses anywhere, every window dark, except a faint glow somewhere in the back. I texted Cole I was there. He texted back right away, which was its own weird thing for a man supposed to be out of town at a family thing. Doors open, he wrote. Go on in. I asked if he could just call me real quick. He didn't call. Another text. Can't talk right now. Key sticks just push. I tried the door, and it opened before I even touched the handle. It wasn't latched. Inside, the house was warm. That's the detail that stuck with me. It was warm and it smelled like food. There was a dining room off the front, and the table was set. Plates, glasses, a whole meal laid out, still steaming, like a family just got up and stepped away from it. The TV was on in the next room, playing to nobody. But the house was dead silent. No footsteps, no voices, just me, and a dinner nobody was eating. My phone buzzed. You made it. We're so glad. Go ahead and take a seat at the table. We'll be right in. There was no we. Cole was supposed to be out of town. His uncle was supposed to be the whole reason I was standing there. I did not sit down. I'd love to tell you I ran right then. I didn't. I stood there in that warm, humming house, telling myself there was a normal explanation. The way you do when the real answer is too big to pick up and hold. Every red flag from the whole drive should have had me back in my car already. I knew it standing there, and I still didn't move. I'm an idiot. I've had years to make peace with that, and I still haven't. And then I looked past the dining table into the den where the TV was going. And what I saw in that room is why I still sleep with a light on. The den had no couch. The furniture was all shoved back against the walls. In the middle of the room, the chairs from all over the house had been set up in a tight circle, maybe 8 of them, everyone facing in toward a single chair in the center. That center chair faced a camera up on a tripod. The little light on it was on. It was already recording. And taped to the back of that center chair, right at head height, was a strip of paper with my name written on it. I left the way you leave a dream where your legs won't work. I don't remember the door. I remember the gravel and my headlights and a text that came in as I hit the main road. It said, "You didn't even stay for dinner. I drove straight to the police. They went out that same night. The house was a short-term rental, paid in cash, under a name that didn't exist. The dinner was real. The camera was gone. Cole was gone. He never came into my station again. Here's the part it took the detective a week to tell me. The part I wish I didn't know. Cole hadn't picked me out of nowhere. In the weeks before that night, somebody had been going around asking questions about the overnight people at 3 different stations along that highway. A man, paid in cash, telling people he was running background checks for some employer, a private investigator. He'd put together little profiles, who worked alone, who just moved to town, who had no family close by. My name was on his list with my schedule and a note written next to it. The note said, "No one local, friendly, easy, the kindest thing about me." The part I was proudest of was the exact thing he went shopping for. I think about that more than I think about the chair. The investigators list had 3 other names on it besides mine. The police never released them, and Cole was never found. I've wondered, every year since, whether the other 2 were as lucky as I was. I have never once had the nerve to find out. The scariest people I ever met didn't look scary at all. The one that nearly killed me looked like the most ordinary man on earth, and I've decided that's the whole trick of it. A couple years ago, I moved to a new city for a job at a hospital. I worked nights on a surgical floor. I didn't know one single person in that town. I figured the loneliness was going to be the hardest part of that year. I was so wrong about that, it nearly got me killed. I'll call him Marcus, since that's the name he gave me. And I've got no reason to think it was even real. When you work nights and know nobody, you end up on the apps. I was on Hinge and Bumble mostly. I wasn't looking for anything serious. I just wanted to feel like a person again, to sit across a table from somebody and talk. I went on a handful of dates that spring. Most were fine. Forgettable. Marcus wasn't forgettable. He was good-looking, easy to talk to, asked good questions, and actually remembered the answers. But something about him was off. I couldn't tell you what, exactly. A flatness behind his eyes when he thought I wasn't looking at him. I'd made myself a promise to stop ignoring that feeling. So after a few dates, I let it fade out. We texted less, then not at all. I figured he felt the same. I didn't block him, I didn't make a thing of it. I just let it go quiet. I'd basically forgotten he existed by summer. Remember that part. Around the same time things went quiet with Marcus, I met somebody who actually stuck. I'll call him Daniel. We matched on Hinge, of all places, and from the first coffee it was just easy. No flatness. No weird feeling. Just a kind, normal guy who laughed at my terrible jokes. For a few weeks that summer, I was honestly happy. I tell you about Daniel now because he matters later, more than I ever could have guessed. It started with a car, a brown sedan. Older, nothing special. Parked across from my apartment one night when I got home off a shift. I only clocked it because I'd never seen it there before. And then it was there every single night for a week. I told myself half the cars on my street were brown and boring. Then I started seeing it in other places. The hospital parking garage, 3 rows over at the grocery store. Always empty. Always just far enough away that I couldn't be sure it was the same one. Then I started seeing the man. Tall, plain. The kind of face you forget while you're still looking at it. Always on his phone, always near that sedan, never close enough to say anything to. One time, walking to my car after a double, I felt eyes on me. I turned around. And there he was at the far end of the lot, just watching me. He didn't look away when I caught him. He just looked back down at his phone, calm as could be. By then, I was sure this man was hunting me. I stopped sleeping. I memorized that sedan, the dents, all of it. One night, it followed me. I pulled out of the coffee place where I'd been killing time before a shift, and the brown sedan pulled out behind me. I took 3 wrong turns just to be sure. It hung back, patient, 2 cars behind, the whole way to within a block of the hospital. I have never been so scared of a pair of headlights in my life. I told Daniel about it. He's the one who said, "Call the police," Stop trying to handle this yourself. So when the sedan showed up outside my apartment again that weekend, I called them. I watched from my window while two officers walked up to the car and the tall man got out. He didn't run. He didn't argue. He stood there, calm as anything, and reached into his coat. And I about screamed into the phone. And all he pulled out was a wallet. The officers came to my door a few minutes later. The man in the brown sedan was a licensed private investigator. He'd been hired to follow me. He was, the officer told me, completely inside the law, and there was nothing they could do. He packed up and drove off, and I stood in my doorway feeling something a lot worse than scared. I felt watched by somebody who had a reason, because that's the question that ate me alive the next few weeks. Who hires a private investigator to follow a night shift nurse who knows nobody in town? I had no ex worth that kind of money, no family that cared that much, no secrets. I sat with Daniel and made a list of every person I'd met since I moved. And the list was short and harmless, and none of it made any sense. Then the sedan was gone. A week, then two, and the brown car never came back. Whoever sent that man seemed to have gotten whatever they were after. The watched feeling didn't leave when the car did, but I told myself it would fade. I started sleeping again. With Daniel around, it started to feel like a strange story I'd tell someday. In August, Daniel and I drove out to a state park to hike. First real day off I'd had in a while. And out on that trail, for the first time since the sedan disappeared, I felt it again. That certainty that I was not alone in those trees. Daniel felt it too, I could tell, because he kept glancing back over his shoulder into the brush. I made a joke that it was probably just another private investigator trying to finish what the last one couldn't. We both laughed. We shouldn't have. On the walk back to the lot, I heard footsteps off the trail, in the brush, keeping pace with us. Daniel stopped at the parking lot to use the restroom, and I waited outside by the car, looking at my phone. And it was right there, in that gravel lot, that I finally found out who had hired the investigator. And the answer was so much worse than any stranger could have been. Marcus came out of the tree line at a dead run. The man from the apps, the one I'd let fade back in spring, the one I'd nearly forgotten. He got to me before I could even understand what I was looking at, and he had my arm, and he was talking fast and calm at the same time, telling me to come with him, that he forgave me, that he understood why I needed to see other people. But it was time to come home now. He kept saying it. Come home. We had never been to a home. We'd been to dinner 3 times. I screamed. Daniel came out of that restroom at a sprint and hit Marcus and put him on the ground. Marcus got back up and started threatening both of us, but Daniel didn't back down. He just put himself between Marcus and me. And Marcus started backing into the trees, still talking, still calm. We got in the car, and I called the police off the road with my hands shaking right off the wheel. I have no doubt, none, that if Daniel hadn't been there that day, I'd be gone. He saved my life. I know how that sounds, and I mean it flat and literal. Here's the part I still can't sit with. The private investigator is the other reason I'm alive. Marcus hired him months back to follow me because Marcus believed we were together and that I was cheating on him. But the investigator, just doing his job, figured out the thing Marcus never could. He worked out that Marcus and I had no relationship at all, that the whole thing lived inside Marcus's head. He stopped taking the man's money. He warned Marcus on the record to stay away from me. And when the police came asking, that investigator is the one who told them straight that Marcus was dangerous and that I needed protecting. The man I'd been terrified of was the only one who saw it coming. When they finally found Marcus's car, it wasn't the brown sedan. That had been the investigators the whole time. Marcus drove something I'd never even noticed, which was its own kind of horror. In the back of it, the police found a folder of photos of me going back to before our first date. They found a hospital ID badge with my name on it, one I never lost and never reported missing, and folded up in a bag, a set of surgical scrubs, in my exact size, still creased from the package. Nobody could tell me what the scrubs were for. I've got my own ideas. I don't say them out loud. I got a restraining order. That was the most the law could do. Not long after, Marcus disappeared, deleted everything. No Facebook, no Instagram, no trace. Like he stepped sideways out of the world. It's been a few years now. Daniel and I are still together, and I think that's the only good thing that came out of any of it. The man I was scared of saved my life, and the man I'd forgotten almost ended it. And I think about that backwards arrangement every single day. I check my back seat before I get in my car now. I always will. What I never learned, the thing that finds me at 3 in the morning, is how Marcus got a badge with my name on it before we ever met. The investigator's notes said the watching started in March. I didn't match with Marcus until April. Somebody was already following me before either of us said one word to each other. The investigator never figured out who. And neither, after all this time, have I.